Hello wrestling fans, the Wrestling Wizard here and welcome to another video. And in this video we're going to talk about Wyndham Rotunda, aka The Fiend, aka Bray Wyatt, and where on earth he's going to end up signing when his 90-day non-compete contract comes to an end. Now as far as we're aware, again this is just speculation, what do we actually know is that Bray Wyatt was released on July the 31st from WWE. And WWE typically have a 90-day non-compete clause in their contracts, where basically this means that you can't negotiate and you certainly can't sign with another company, because technically you're still getting paid from that company and you're still signed to that company under contract. But when that expires, you can do whatever the heck you want. You're a free agent and you can sign and turn up in a promotion whenever you want. Literally, you could sign the next day, or as soon as the minute expires on that contract, you could end up in another company. Now, if we do the maths, 31st of July, 90 days fast forward to the 29th of October, that is when, in theory, Bray Wyatt technically isn't contracted towards WWE. That's all we think we know. Now, we don't know that Bray Wyatt isn't waiting down his old contract within WWE to negotiate a new contract. And you've got to think, if Vince has got any sanity, he's going to negotiate or renegotiate a deal with Bray Wyatt in some form or shape. Like, you'd think he'd be mad not to, especially with the competition in AEW snapping on the heels of WWE, re-signing ex-WWE superstars and booking them properly. WWE, you could argue they're not doing that, although they are making positive tracks at the last few weeks, I will add. But you know, they've got to be scared, so if Vince has got any sense, he's going to offer Wyatt some sort of contract. We also don't know that that contract hasn't expired earlier than what we thought. He could already be a free agent, we don't know that. Again, Vince would be mad to release Wyatt earlier than he'd have to. He wants to keep him as far away, or for as long as possible anyway. The thought of him being able to contact and negotiate another deal with a company as far apart as possible from when he was released from WWE. So it makes sense to utilise the 90 days in his case. So we don't know. We don't know what on earth's going on in Bray Wyatt's mind. We don't know what his plans are. He may well have not actually decided. It might be just cryptic teases. He might be testing the water, getting feedback from the fans where they want to see him, because ultimately we know how close he is to his fans and certainly to his WWE fan base as well, which, you know, he has a very, very cult following. Not everybody's a fan of him, but people that are absolutely obsessed with him. Like, personally, to me, he was always my favourite wrestler within the company, and the Fiend gimmick was just downright awesome. I was just so sad to see the way it was booked. But Vince is persuasive. Vince is a businessman. He could offer him a new deal, and there could be some more creative freedom within that deal. Unlikely, but possible. Now, I know what you're thinking. Why have you crossed off Ring of Honor? Why have you crossed off Impact Wrestling in the thumbnail? He could still go there. Well, of course he could go there. However, out of AEW, WWE, Impact and Ring of Honor, I think Ring of Honor and Impact are the two least likely companies I would see him going to. I don't mean in any shape or form that he wouldn't do and accelerate really well within that company and elevate a lot of the talent. I just couldn't see, if I was a betting man, that being the company he was going to go into. Ring of Honor, there's not been a lot of speculation. If he was close to nearing a deal there, or there was some sort of interest, we'd know about it. All we've literally heard is a fan commented on a match he'd like to see between Danhausen and Bray Wyatt, and Bray Wyatt responded with, basically, we should tag team together, be very evil of us. So he did respond, and of course when he responded, people were like, oh, he's signing for Ring of Honor. No, it's just a theory. He responded, it's quite cool, it's clever of Wyatt because it keeps his name in the spotlight again, and of course gets people speculating. But as far as that, I couldn't see it. It's a smaller company as well. I just don't see him going there personally. Now, Impact, there was some rumours that he was going to be debuting at Bound for Glory on the 21st of October. Of course, that didn't happen. We saw the former WWE employees in the Iconics, I think they're now called the Inspiration, debut, and we didn't see, of course, Bray Wyatt. We also didn't see Braun Strowman, because there was also some speculation that he was going to go there. Now, I'm going to be honest, out of Braun Strowman and Bray Wyatt, I could see Braun Strowman going to Impact Wrestling, because Braun Strowman, if sources are true, wants to work on other projects. He doesn't necessarily want to focus full-time on wrestling. So Impact would give him that freedom, I think, more than any other company. I think if he went to AEW and back to WWE, they would want a full-time schedule from him. I couldn't see him negotiating like a part-time deal where they give him flexibility. Certainly not WWE. They don't even let superstars have Twitch accounts. So I couldn't see that happening. So Braun Strowman, yes. Bray Wyatt, no. Now, I think he'd be a great fit for Impact. Why? Well, he'd be the face of that company. It's as simple as that. They work that company really well with dark characters as well. You only need to look at Jeff Hardy and the Willow character. So Bray Wyatt would be right up their street. And he would elevate talent, and there's no doubt he would like run riot in that company, and he'd be an asset to them. However, again, we're looking at deals, lucrative deals. You know, you're going to want to get the best possible deal you can if you're a creative genius on the level of Bray Wyatt, which is why I think the bigger companies will be battling it out for him. And as I said, if Vince hasn't already offered him some sort of deal to come back, he's a nutter, he's an idiot, because if you feed him to Tony Khan and AEW, think how awesome he will be in that company and how much he will elevate that company. You only need to look at wrestlers like Aleister Black, who's now Malachi Black in AEW. Now, he's literally one of my favourite characters in AEW now. He's one of my least favourite characters in WWE because I always looked at him and thought, there's something not quite right with what you're doing. It's stop-start booking. But now they've just made him this like evil monster, and he's made Cody Rhodes look like a kid. So much so to the point where Cody Rhodes is literally getting booed now, and he was one of the most over talents in AEW. Malachi Black has had that impact. There's no doubt that Bray Wyatt would have that impact within All Elite Wrestling. Think of the superstars, think of the rivalries. Like AEW love factions, and Wyatt could bring in his own faction. If the Cult of Wyndham comes to light, I still think that's a podcast, or going to be a podcast, but think of the potential there. And think of if you had like Braun Strowman, Eric Redbeard, Bo Dallas, and Wyndham Rotunda. Is this like revamped version of the Wyatt family? You have to be careful with that because people would see it as a knockoff of the Wyatt family, so you'd have to bring something new and inventive and exciting. Bray Wyatt's a creative genius. He would certainly do that. Now, of course, a lot of tails are wagging as well because Wyndham Rotunda follows Tony Khan. I wouldn't read too much into that. A lot of wrestlers follow other companies. Look at Britt Baker, DMD of AEW, Women's Champion. She follows WWE. I wouldn't read too much into that. Companies, to a certain extent, will support other superstars within those companies. Not always, but it's not uncommon. And also as well, they've had a talking relationship. Tony Khan and Bray Wyatt have had that relationship in the past. Tony Khan has got a relationship with a number of WWE superstars from the past as well. You know, he's watched the product, he's been there in the product behind the scenes, and he's praised Bray Wyatt a lot as well. And I know people have questioned him about whether he's been in contact with Bray Wyatt, and he said no. Well, he wouldn't say yes, would he? Especially if he's in a 90-day no-compete contract. But doesn't mean they're not going to negotiate a deal, or he's going to offer him a deal and give him way more creative control. And if he goes to AEW, definitely going to get creative control, that's for sure. You can't see him being booked worse than the Fiend gimmick was eventually booked. And that, of course, brings us on to WWE. Why could he re-sign with WWE? Now, a really interesting comment came up the other week on one of my videos. And one of you put, basically, like, if he did come back, if the Fiend did come back to WWE and go after Roman, what would actually happen? Because you'd look at it and go, well, Roman Reigns is Vince's golden child, and the Fiend probably just end up losing, and then we're back to square one. And it did get me thinking, because it would concern me. One thing would concern me with Bray Wyatt going back and working within WWE. Booking. Creative control. I worry that the first 3-4 months he'd be booked like a weapon, and then they'd return to this ridiculous shenanigans with the hocus pocus business, and Bray Wyatt would ultimately just lose respect for the character that he created and built because he's fed it to Vince McMahon and he's ruined it. So he'd have to get 100% creative control. And in my eyes, there's only one way you can rebook The Fiend to reset him. Have him come back as an absolute weapon. Now, I don't think you could bring him back. There's nothing wrong with the whole Fiend gimmick, as in visually, as in the character itself. Like, of course it works. And again, if it was booked properly in the past, it would have been absolute fire. But he would have to be taken as, like, in my opinion, like the ultimate weapon in WWE. And the only way you could do that, in my opinion, is have him debut, or re-debut, shall I say. Slightly new version for The Fiend. That could be you don't even need to have a new mask, but just something new about him. Whatever it may be, again, I'm just speculating here. Wins the Rumble, and then is the one to dethrone Roman Reigns at WrestleMania, should I say. Gets his revenge on the whole SummerSlam fiasco where he lost the title. Didn't get pinned, but lost the title. And gets his revenge. He's often commented about revenge as a confession of pain. Is that going to come full circle? Is his character to come full circle? We saw the glimpses way back. Can't believe people are forgetting this. Where Alexa Bliss, when she was associated with The Fiend, walked past Roman Reigns and gave him that evil glare. Like, you can't leave that unanswered. Does that mean he's coming back to get his revenge on Roman Reigns? It sounds so much fantasy, but in my opinion, you could even have Bliss and The Fiend win the Rumble and win the titles at WrestleMania. And think about this from a WWE fan's perspective. Who would argue with that? Like, who would argue with that? The question would be, where would they go after that? But you cannot go wrong with that booking, surely. Like, there's no way you can go wrong. Return to WWE in monster form and rewrite all the wrongs that you had. Now, the reality is, if he were to re-sign with WWE, yes, he's going to have, obviously, the Fiend gimmick back, because he might lose that with the likeliness rights, etc., outside of the WWE. So he'd keep that, but I would fear for the way he was booked within WWE. So if I'm going to guess, put it out there, and predict where he's going to go, I honestly couldn't at this moment. I only want to see him in WWE if he's booked properly. In AEW, again, there's no real if in that. I'd like to see him in AEW, but I think his character would be better suited to a WWE return, again, if that creative freedom was there. And Vince drops a bit of ego, and then getting the Fiend back, that's good news for WWE and the rival wars between them and AEW. So what do you think? What's your thoughts and opinions? Where do you think he's going to end up? Who do you think he's going to sign with? Get your thoughts in the comments section. It'd be really awesome to hear them. Thank you very much for watching this video. It'd be much appreciative if you could like the video, subscribe if you're new, share the video about, and we'll see you in another video. But interesting times, where will Wyndham Rotunda end up?